Welcome to this history lesson. Today we're going to walk through more than 10 years of Android development. So, as an introduction, my name is Julien Salvi. I'm the lead Android engineer at a company called Aircall, based in Paris. On the side, I'm an Android GD. I'm part of the Paris Android user group. And on the fun fact, I'm listening to punk rock music and looking for the best IPA beers. If you want to follow me on Twitter, here's my handle here, sharing some tech stuff. So first, let's start with a disclaimer. So this talk is going to be obviously about Android, mainly focus on my personal experience as a developer, especially as an Android developer. And we're going to see how our developer experience on Android has evolved through the time. We're going to see some fun and nice Android dev sample. And this talk is going to be interactive. So at some point, I'm going to ask you to participate in some manner. And hopefully it's going to be a fun one. So this will be about this talk. I won't talk about how Android was born. Chaz did it perfectly with his book. And I won't cover everything that happened in the Android world. It will require much more than 45 minutes. So it won't going to be this part of the story. So let's set up a bit of context for this talk. Well, a bit of context. We are Android developer. We love context. So sometimes I'm feeling a bit like this, more than 10 years in the Android world. I started in 2010, 2011. So I've seen a lot of things, but sometimes I'm also feeling like this, jumping on new things, compose, multi-platform stuff, so always learning, and you always got the baby face when you jump on new technologies. It was a lot like this. Lots of focus, lots of learning, lots of what's happening. So it was mainly like this. So this is me. This is my face. So I started Android development when Froyo was the main Android OS. So back then. I mainly worked for startups, team of 1, 2, or maximum 5. I started with the nice IDE Eclipse and the IDT plugin, using the good old Java, using the good old Action Bar Sherlock for those who remember, using Crashlytics when it was not part of Firebase, but back in the days, Twitter and even independent. Using Butterknife. It was a nice one and pretty useful back then. Android annotation, it was a thing before. Don't use it now, please. Then we jump on Kotlin, Android Studio, with a lot of improvement on the developer experience with the Android Studio, everything. And then we now reach compose, multi-platform, and stuff like this. So this is my whole experience of the Android world. Seen a lot, and we always learn new things. So the future is bright for the Android development. So we're gonna see how we went from this. I think it was back in 2009. So first, developer website of the Android developer site, to this one, shiny new one with Compose, and lots of documentation, lots of learning. How we went from this one, Eclipse with the emulator that runs forever, to this brand new Android Studio within, with the emulator inside Android Studio. So we came a long way from Eclipse to Android Studio. Or maybe how we went from this tiny little Samsung to this big foldable Pixel. So we've come along, it was a long way. So, but first question, I want to, I was talking, it was an interactive talk. I want you to participate and scan this QR code and tell me what was your first Android version you played with. And hopefully we're gonna see the result live here. Yes. Okay, we have some gingerbread, we have some Kit Kats, Froyo, lots of Kit Kat. So you're gonna see like some good old things, good bad things also. Okay, gingerbread, ice cream sandwich, cupcake, jelly beans, 211. Okay, so we see like you have some experience in the Android world, so you won't gonna be lost in that talk. Okay, so back to the slides now. Check. Okay, so let's see how the Android world evolved through the time. So back then, Android 1.0, 2009, 2008, first version, iteration, Android 3 came with like the magnificent holo design. Then the one major update was the Android 5 with the new introduction of the material design. Then Android 6, we've seen like the new runtime permission coming. And then Android 9, end of the desert history, Android Pie. But we came like to new desert with Android Tiramisu and stuff like this. So it's good like to be back on the desert side. So now, like we have like Android 14 in front of us. So we have like now a big picture of the Android ecosystem, let's see. And about that, how our dev experience like evolved. So at first we have our Eclipse ADT plugin with Java. It was like a bit of pain to set up everything, managing dependencies and stuff like this. Android 1.5, I put it here because it was the birth of the async task. And then, following the introduction of holo design, we had the introduction of some concepts like action bar, the holo design, some support libraries, and the birth of Android annotation. Then, just after that, like as the action bar was introduced, like the community, is amazing. So, built the action bar Sherlock for backward compatibility. Then we had the introduction of ARX Java, then Google pushed Volley, there was also Butterknife, Dagger, Retrofit, the Picasso, around like between 2012 and 2014. The birth of the Chromecast, just before the introduction of material design. And then when material design was introduced, we've seen like a lot of libraries pushed by Google. So libraries around like material design, some support libraries for cards and so on. Introduction of Android outside of the phone, like Google TV, Cardboard and stuff like this. And then we have like the introduction of Android Studio right after the introduction of Android 5. And then lots of improvement on like the consolidation part of Android, let's say, runtime permission, DOS mode, and so on. So beginning this time, Google pushed a lot of library, a lot of support library. And then starting just before 2018, we've seen like the rise of Kotlin, some architecture components with view model, live data, and so on. And then at the I.O. 2019, Google pushed Kotlin as the first main like programming language for Android. And then it was like the death of the support library, and we welcome like the ton of Android X libraries. So Google shut down a few things like Daydream. Virtual reality is not is a roller coaster. And then we finally have also the death of the async task. Like you seen, like we came like from 2009 to like 2021, so async tasks lived for too long. And then we have like for brand new Android development, right of Compose, multi-platform, and stuff like this. So the future is Kotlin and Bright. So with all of this, I like focus and divided this timeline into 3 parts. So like the beginning, the middle, and the end. Pretty simple. So why I choose like this kind of like markers, like Android 5 was the like birth of material design, which was like, and still a very big thing in the Android world. And the other marker was like the rise of Kotlin. 2 main markers that define 3 zones, 3 areas in the Android development. So at the beginning there was like the YOLO age, HOLO age. Then we end up in the material age from like 2014 to the beginning of Kotlin. And then we end up to the Kotlin age, or the K age, or the cage. Let's simplify the thing. Okay, so through like the whole world of Android and all the things that happened since 2009, we've seen like, we're gonna see how maybe the development, the Android development has evolved, our environment itself from like Eclipse to Android Studio, how the action bar evolve, or how to build native UI, maybe see a bit of network call, architecture, scrolling content, permission of background work. I said maybe, because it's going to be up to you to choose which topic you want to like know about. And so I'm kindly ask you again to scan this QR code, and then you're going to choose the topic which is the most interesting for you. Action bar, native UI, network call, stuff like this. Just maybe the QR code was a bit too fast. Just scanning here. And then I'm going to jump on the topics that was the most weighted. Architecture, I was so sure it's going to be this one. Every time. Okay, architecture first by far. And then, okay, development environment and native UI. Okay. Okay, it's going to be a fun one. Okay, architecture first, then I'm going to jump on the development environment, and then we're going to see how we build native UI along the way. If I have more time, I'll jump on other topics. Okay, so we're going to see native architecture. Okay. How architectures has evolved along the way in the Android world. It was not like a simple task, like to manage the architecture of an Android app. So at first, when I started like, the Android development, I was mostly focused on the AITA or the AITF architecture, let's say. Like the all in the activity or all in the fragment. That was a thing when you started Android development, you used to do, but please, I used to do that when I was a student. I'm doing sometimes today when I'm doing some POC, but please don't do it that professionally. You can end up like having like some big code like this. You know the good maintainability of this. This was like a project back in 2010, I think. Student project, and you feel the vibes of like the everything in the single file. So please don't do that. And then we have like some kind of rise of the MVC context, the architecture, like a model view controller, like to have like at least a beginning of the separation of the concerns. The user input was handled by the controller, and please do not put business logic in view components. It's not meant to be in that part. So MVC, pretty simple, like the controller was like the activity or the fragment, which talked like to the, on the model side, like to get some data, and then talk to the view to update like any edit text button, view pager, and stuff like this. So, it was like a first introduction of architecture in an Android, not perfect, but that was a start. Then, beginning of the YOLO age and the beginning of material age, we've seen a lot of the MVP architecture pushing in the Android world, the model view presenter architecture. So like this, we were like keeping also the separation of the concern. Maybe we introduce some kind of abstraction in your code base, like to have better maintainability, scalability. So the user input was not handled by the controller anymore. It's handled by the view. It made more sense. And also, please do not put business logic in view. So on the view side, it was like everything related to view. So activity, fragment, component like edit text, button, stuff like this. So which makes much more sense than the MVC architecture, let's say. Then the view talks to the presenter, and the presenter fetches the model, and then you have the data through the presenter, which updates the view. Pretty simple, and it works pretty fine. So if you it might be still relevant to use it in modern Android application. And then, in the material age and even now, Google pushed a lot for the MVVM architecture. So the model view model. They push also some components, part of the Android architecture libraries, so pushing view models, live data, and stuff like this to better architect our Android apps. So this kind of architecture looks like this. So we keep the view as a part of the activity, fragment, edit text, and so on. The view is gonna talk to the view model, which is gonna fetch the data from the model part. So data layer might be repository, data source, stuff like this. You know how it works. And then the view model gonna observe the changes that happen on the data layer side. And then the UI gonna observe the data that has changed on the view model part. Still a very good architecture to go with if it fits your needs. And then, in a much more like reactive programming approach, we have like the MVI context architecture, like the model view intent. And by intent, I don't mean like Android intent for sure. With that, you can keep like the separation of conserve, have some observability in your Android app, and introduction of state machine possibly. And it's a great start and a great architecture if you want like to use reactive programming and implement some UDF, unidirectional data flow. So the architecture looks like a bit like this. The view remains the same as the view model, and then the user event is going to be the intent, so all the interaction that has been triggered from the UI, which is going to talk to the model part, and we're going to dispatch this interaction, so this event, to a reducer, and then it's going to produce a state that's going to be dispatched to the UI. Then we have also the introduction of the repository pattern, like to better architecture the data layer of your Android app. So have an abstraction of the data layer, keep the separation of the concerns, and having like a single source of truth. So still relevant, even on the developer Android documentation is pushed as a good pattern. The repository is going to talk maybe to other repository, which and then a repository gonna talk to one or many data sources. Then we had like the introduction, like a lot of clean architecture. Well, clean-ish architecture. Just like to keep the separation of concern, abstraction, testable code, maintainability. So I won't tell you like follow by the book the clean architecture. It's a mistake. Take some inspiration, take what is good for you, and implement what you need actually for your application. So pretty simple diagram about the clean architecture. And in the end, we always end up like for my experience doing MVWYW, MVW. It's like this, MVW architecture. The model view what you want in the end. Just like to keep in mind, you want to keep the separation of concerns inside your application, have some maintainable code for you and your colleagues, so you end up like in a very happy place. And the testable code, that matters, like testing is a good thing, and so that was, it is the main things like to know when you want to architecture your Android app, keep the separation of concerns, maintainability, scalability, and testability. The rest, MVVM, MVP, MVI, it's up to you. We always end up like mixing a lot of things, but please do not put business logic in view components. So I said it was a retrospective of the Android, so let's do a retrospective of like the whole architecture. Depends. Depends, it's up to you. Like we've seen like MVC, MVP, MVI. It's up to you what is working for you and your company, your colleagues. It's up to you to say, okay, I'm gonna jump on some concern, some MVM, MVVM. So the good answer is it depends. Okay, so now we're gonna jump on, it was the development environment. So we came from like Eclipse ADT plugins, Java, to a brand new Android Studio, Kotlin, stuff like this. So the moon will eclipse the sun. So at the beginning, the Big Bang. Well, not the Big Bang, but Eclipse, the ADT plugin, and Java. It looked a bit like this. It was the hard life of doing Android development back then, 2011. No dark mode, no need to do that. Everything on the side with Eclipse, maintaining the plugin, managing dependencies, like pushing some hard jar in the dependencies. No Maven Gradle thing, so it was pretty hard. Building some UI, it looked a bit like this. No compose. You have like a nice catalog of widgets, button layout, stuff like this. It was a thing. It worked, but it was definitely not perfect. And there is also this nice emulator that took ages to load. I say ages, ages. It took around like this amount of time like to load. Okay, so at the beginning we were like using Eclipse ADT plugin. So it was a thing. It was like the first idea to develop Android apps. It was working not well, but was working. We had a very slow emulator. If you didn't have any Android devices with you, it was a pain to work with that. And back then, we had like no Gradle, no dependency manager, no live edition, and almost no tooling around like profiling the application, seeing what's going on inside your application, apart the logcat. No tool outside of Eclipse, almost no. So, beginning with that, it was like an experience of life, let's say. But we started like to see some tooling around like Eclipse and IDT, like to better profile the application, better debug. It was very limited, but we started like to see like golden age of the YOLO age, see some tooling arriving with Eclipse. We had the project creation wizard to like nicely kickstart your project. Within like the AVD, the Android virtual devices, like to create and manage emulators. And within like the rise of the first debugging tooling and tracing support, like you see on the side of the picture. And then we see like ADB, NDK support, layout editor. So little by little, step by step, we've seen like the whole developer experience evolving on the Eclipse side. And in parallel, JetBrains with IntelliJ develop also their plugin, like to develop Android apps, but inside IntelliJ. So starting 2011, it was possible to use IntelliJ for Android development. Same feature than Eclipse, but definitely in a shinier place. And in 2012, we started like to see a lot of improvement around the debugging and the profiling of your Android apps. And starting 2013, we had like a brand new tooling system, Gradle, and it has changed our life in a good or a bad way. It's up to you. And then Google started like to like say, okay, IntelliJ has very nice things, so we're gonna do like the best crossover ever. IntelliJ cross Android, we're gonna build Android Studio. And it was the best move for our developer experience. And it came up with a lot of tooling and a lot of things inside your IDE. So the first preview of Android Studio came in 2013 with the Gradle tooling, lint, build, support of build variants, better layout editor to create your applications, and much more. And the first stable release was in 2014. With that, we see some lot of build improvement with Gradle. We had the introduction of the memory profiler, code analysis, and a lot of things that could improve our code base and help us out to better monitor our Android applications. But meanwhile, in the Eclipse world, 2016, it was like the end of life for Eclipse and the ADT plugin. November 2016, end of Eclipse and the ADT support. It was time. It was nice, but it was time to say goodbye to our good old Eclipse. And now the future is bright with IntelliJ and Android Studio. We have so many tooling now, like support of like building icons with the live edition with Compose. So we came like a long way from like the good old Eclipse to now. We have so many good features: the instant run, Kotlin support, profiling of your app, performance analysis, database inspection, Compose live preview edition, new wizard for TV, tablets, and stuff like this. So now the ecosystem and our developer tools are very, very good compared to what it used to be with Eclipse. It's not perfect for sure, but our tooling has evolved a lot and in a very good way. So we have a lot of things, and we must know how to learn and use all the tooling that Android Studio offers. So for retrospective on that, for sure, go with Android Studio. It's a goldmine in the tooling, but with the tooling, great tooling comes with great responsibilities. So like use it well. Don't do crazy things with that. No more Eclipse. That was a good thing, like to get rid of Eclipse and IDT plugin. Gradle is wonderful and hateful at the same time. You can spend many times working with Gradle, trying to like do some crazy groovy stuff, or now some Kotlin script. But you can spend and waste a lot of time with Gradle. Also, it's not like quite easy like to build your own IntelliJ Android Studio plugin, but if you try like to do it, you can take advantage of it. And for sure, go and explore the Gradle Kotlin script. That's the future of the Gradle environment. Okay, so last topic, it was like building native UI. Okay, so let's see how we came like from a tiny text to a shiny new compose Android architecture. Okay, building native UI. We had at the beginning like the first view components, and we end up like using shiny new composable. So we're gonna see how the community itself like contributed like to a better developer experience for developing Android apps, and we're gonna see how this thing has evolved over time from like a good old Java XML to shiny new Compose and Kotlin. Okay, so in the Euro age, beginning of Android, it was like the dark age for building Android UI. Not many components with the API one, but many possibilities by hand. So everything was homemade, not always good. So we had like the activity, the view, some view groups, linear layout, frame layout, absolute layout. Yeah. So it was like a student project of mine back then. So good old Java, defining the button, finding the view, casting the button, stuff like this. Extend like any view, here a surface view, implementing lots of constructors, stuff like this. Was long and painful. We defined like the good old XML, implementing like a linear layout at the beginning, then implementing the scroll view, stuff like this. So yeah. It was not like good and fun like to do it. And I say, yeah, absolute layout. It was a pretty nice thing, not nice actually, but fun. It actually came in API 1, and it was directly deprecated in API 3. Why? Because with absolute layout, you were like positioning your components using pixel coordinates. You see the thing coming, lots of Android devices that came with along the way, more than 1,000 type of device. If you place your components using pixel coordinates, sometimes it's going to be off screen, and it's going to be often off screen. So not scalable. The Android team lasted like for 2 versions of the Android API, and then they took the decision, okay, it was a mistake like to place things using pixel. We're gonna use like DP, density of pixel. Instead, it's gonna be better and scalable. So please, if you saw some absolute layout in your code base, get rid of it and don't do that at all. So supporting like multiple density was not like very trivial back in the days. We had like multiple assets for like low density, medium, HDPI, XXXXDPI. So no SVG back then. We ended up like using a lot of PNG, stuff like this. And it was like quite painful to maintain. But we had like 9-patch. 9-patch was a very nice thing if you want like to have some stretching in your views. It was not SVG for sure, but it kind of worked. And it was pretty useful back then. So the end of the like in the Holo age, Honeycomb introduced the first design system of Android, let's say, Holo design. So, which say new design, new components. And it was the rise of the fragments and the first support library, the V4. And it was like some kind of design system. And it was actually not bad. Not good for sure, but back then it was pretty nice to have this kind of design system, let's say, within Android. And you were able like to implement nice components. And then Google introduced and pushed a lot of support libraries like the V7 with lots of stuff inside with the action bar and stuff like this. And the community also pushed a lot of things around that and how to better build UI on Android. So Butterknife, Android annotation, action bar Sherlock, Invent Bus, there was like plenty of library used by developers back then. And our developer experience with that like skyrocket. So this is an example of using Butterknife back then, like you binding the view, and then you could also bind strings, bind a non-click listener. It was pretty interesting and very nice like to play with. So here is the Android annotation library. It was like annotation all the way, annotate everything, annotate the activity, the view, the service, and stuff like that. You can end up like in like annotation L inside your application. I've seen some code base when Android annotation is like deep installed in the app, it's very hard like to get rid of it. And then we had also Event Bus. Like great power, great responsibilities. It is a very good library, but if you're using it wrong, it's gonna like crash your application. So very good thing like to notify one part of your application with like an event with data associated. But please use it like not in a YOLO way. And then, beginning of material age, we seen like the big push of the material design. So after material was announced, Google pushed itself a lot of backward components. So for us developers, so it was the golden age of the app compat. So with the app compat library, the card view, the recycler view, lean back for Android TV. So they push a lot of things around material and help us building better applications. And the first introduction of a new concept for us, the elevation, starting with the first version of material. And then Google pushed a lot more libraries in the golden age of the material age. Constraint layout, architecture component, design library. So with that, we had like a lot of things to produce like high quality apps. Constraint layout was life-saving when it came, like to better manage your layout. And it's still a pretty good stuff like to play with. And then with the rise of Kotlin, for sure, we love fragmentation in the Android world. So the support library died, but we welcome the Android X libraries. And we welcome a lot of Android libraries. And with that, Google invested a lot in the developer experience. So a lot of things, good, someone not, like data binding, not fan of it, sorry. The Kotlin ecosystem help us a lot, like to better build Android app. When I say like I don't like data binding because like I don't want like to put any logic in the view part, so like this, nah, not fan of it. And then we end up here right now in the Compose age. So Compose was really a game changer for the UI development for Android. New paradigm, new concept, but it's time like to say goodbye to our good old XML. And we're gonna build like full Kotlin code for building our UI. And gonna build also some efficient UI code. So we came along like with the whole XML Java thing to this brand new like composable, compose preview, stuff like this. So the future is bright with Compose. As a retrospective, we have like the tooling to build views that has improved a lot since the beginning. Move to Compose if you can, but never forget how the view system works behind that. If you have some Kotlin synthetics, get rid of it. No more, that's been deleted and no more supported. Stop using data binding, please. And time to say goodbye to our good old XML. Even if Compose is still new, go for it. And if you have any question, the community is great one like Compose and stuff like this, so go for it. So I think I'm gonna be done for today. Only 3 topics, only 40 minutes. So if you want to have a glimpse of the past, use the webarchives.org like to travel back in time and see some good old version of the Android developer website. They have also on the Android developer Google blog some good old article for like lots of old things if you want like to remember the past. So thank you very much, and always have fun with the Droid. Thank you.